All right, today is January 11th, 2025. It's 10:05, and we want to convene the Castle Hills Parks and Projects Commission meeting. See if there's a quorum, and we do have a quorum. So we're going to proceed. Welcome, and let's take a look at the minutes from let's see, December 14th, 2024, and see if you have any comments or changes to be approved.
I move that we approve the minutes from December 14th.
I second.
All in favor? It's approved. Thank you. Discussion and possible action on a presentation from the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, Sonia Jimenez, regarding TxDOT grant opportunity. Welcome. Yeah, right. Right. Ryan, is the microphone working on the?
It needs to be connected.
I mean, I don't need it necessarily.
No, it's this is someone.
Oh. Yeah, I got enough.
The report.
Yeah.
Let me just, while we're waiting for our technical difficulties, introduce Ms. Jimenez, Sonia Jimenez. I believe you're interim director, Ms. Jimenez. I think she's interim director of AAMPO. And she graciously is giving up time this morning to visit with us about this grant that I've talked about over the last month or two. She's given up time with her granddaughter this morning, so we should be especially grateful to Ms. Jimenez for visiting with us this morning. Thank you, Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you. Please call me Sonia. So I am Sonia Jimenez, the interim executive director, our director of 21 years, retired, effective the end of the year. So the last 11 days has been quite, or more than that, probably the last month has been quite a whirlwind for me. And I see my granddaughter quite often, but I do enjoy spending time with her. I told him, trying to get somewhere at 10 o'clock in the morning with a 4-year-old is quite a challenge, but we made it and we got it here in time. So Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, we say AMPO for short because it is a mouthful otherwise. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the agency, the funding, the required documents that we have, as well as things that you want to consider as a local government, and then some capabilities and programs that we have available for free at the agency. So essentially, how many of y'all have actually, you probably heard of us, but not really know what we do. And that's typically what small municipalities in the region know about us. And so I make it a point to try and get to you all to understand. But essentially what we do is regional transportation planning, and we get allocated federal dollars, and those federal dollars go to projects to get them constructed. To federalize a project is a very long process, and some of the handouts that I gave you demonstrate that process. But we look at mobility, air quality, and safety. As you may or may not know, Bear County is a non-attainment for air quality for ozone. And so we have to, we get another funding pot, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but we have to be sure that our projects don't do more harm to the air quality in the area. And so that's air quality is folded into our area's considerations. So this is a map that illustrates our current study area. We're getting ready to move into the northern part of Kendall, so that we'll be encompassing all of Kendall, and we'll be going to the west, which will include part of Medina all the way to Hondo. So that'll be a new thing that's coming. We're waiting for the governor's approval on that expansion. So hopefully we'll have the new members seated that represent those areas in March. But if you look at this slide, you can see that our population is looking to essentially double between now and 2050. But the lane miles that we have available are only 1,000 because of restricted right-of-way. And as you know, private property rights are something that's just it's a cornerstone of being a Texan, right? And so we have to be sure that we can do what we can with that little bit of right-of-way that we have. But you'll see the numbers go up exponentially if you look at the outer counties. I mean, 60% is a huge amount of growth for something that's already 2.3 million. But when you look at those outer counties, they're looking at 100+% growth. And we really need to figure out how to accommodate that growth for them so that they can still have a nice quality of life. There's a reason why they live out there and not in Bexar County, right? So we need to help them in whatever way we can. So we're federally mandated to do what's called a 3C process. That means cooperative. So we don't do it by ourselves. We do it cooperatively with all the other agencies that do transportation planning. It's comprehensive. So we look at all modes of transportation, including multimodal hike and bike as well. And that's a big component that a lot of folks are looking at recently. And then continuous. As soon as we start, finish up one plan, we're starting for the next round of plans. And I'll go into those in just a moment. We're guided by our Transportation Policy Board, which is 21 voting members, and those are all elected officials from the region. They have an executive committee that's a subset of those members, and then the Technical Advisory Committee advises them on technical matters. And then we have an Active Transportation Advisory Committee that meets once a month as well, and they look at active transportation. Active transportation is anything that is not in a single occupancy vehicle. So you can consider transit active transportation to a certain degree because you have to be a pedestrian to get to transit or take your bike and so forth. So they look at those issues. The ones that are in gray are more ad hoc, and we operate those as needed. And then we have several study oversight committees that look into the studies that I'll go over in a few minutes as well. Right now, Melissa Cabella Harvada, the council member from San Antonio, is our chair. The next chair that will be coming in June will be Commissioner Rebecca Clay Flores from Bexar County. And then our first vice chair is Commissioner Kevin Webb out of Comal County. And he has been a real asset to the board. He's been there a long time, and he really understands the components of everything. So they'll be adding another position for the city of San Antonio as well as Bexar County when that expansion happens. And then if you look toward the bottom, it says Kendall County geographic area. That will change to City of Bernie, and then Kendall County will get their own seat at the table, and the Medina County will get their own seat at the table. Our funding sources are complex and diverse. The transportation planning funds that you see at the top are federal funds. The FTA Section 5303 and the FHWA PL 112, the 3C planning processes. That is what funds our staff and our Unified Planning Work Program, which is studies and programs, and I'll show you that in a minute as well. And then the big money comes for construction and so forth out of the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed in 2022, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. That was an extension of the FAST Act, essentially, but more elements were added, as well as more grant opportunities, particularly for nonprofits and municipalities as well. State funding, as you know, we get state gas tax that has not been indexed since the late 90s. So maybe something will happen, but I doubt it this legislative session. We won't hold our breath for that, but we are grateful that Proposition 1 and Proposition 7 has been extended. And so we hope that that doesn't sunset anytime soon, because that is a significant source of state funding for us. And then locally, we get the Bexar County vehicle registration fees, which you all get to take advantage of, as well, since y'all are part of Bexar County, and the Advanced Transportation District local sales tax, which funds part of VIA and other programs in Bexar County. So the project funding categories that I'm showing up here is essentially flow through TxDOT. They come from the feds and they are distributed by TxDOT. The ones that are in blue, Category 2, Metropolitan Area Corridor, Category 4, Connectivity, and Category 12, Strategic Priority. Category 12 is known as the Clear Lanes funding as well, which is the one that has funded 1604 improvements that are going on, the 35 improvements as well. The ones that are in red are the ones that we competitively grant to locals for projects that they have. Category 5 is exclusive to Bexar County, and that's the congestion mitigation and air quality funding category. And that's the one that we get because we're in non-attainment for air quality. So that's a pot of money that's very specific type of projects. And I'll show you the type of projects that are allowed in each of these funding categories. Category 7, all of these have acronyms because we're a bureaucratic system and everything is acronyms. So 5 is CMAQ, 7 is STBG, Surface Transportation Block Grants. 7 is the most diverse and the most flexible. Category 9 is transportation alternatives that is specific to hike and bike, walk and bike, pedestrian and bicyclist. And then Category 10 is brand new carbon reduction program. And that essentially has the same elements as the Category 5 CMAQ, except that it's allowed throughout the region. It's not limited to just Bexar County. These are the kind of funding category. These are the type of projects that can be funded in each of them. Essentially, I just basically said that to you. Transportation systems management and operation is traffic incident management. I don't know if you're familiar with the HERO program, but that's one of the things that we do for that. And TSMO, for short, it's TSMO, Traffic Systems Management and Operations. And ITS, like when you see the signs that say 10 minutes, 10 miles, or there's a car accident, take a detour, so forth. And then transit is transit and planning studies. And as you can see, STBG funds all of those. The others are very specific to the type that you can add. So we currently have a project call open. I'm just going to do a few slides on the project call, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Councilmember Joyce attended one of our workshops and he said, oh, it was mind numbing. So it was a lot of detail. I'm not going to give you that much detail, but essentially the categories that I mentioned that we have available for funding. We have 256 million available to grant to submitters for construction for their projects. We also program out 2 years, 31 and 32 beyond, just so that we have a little flexibility. As you know, schedules can get delayed and things may need to get pushed. So essentially this is some of what I shared before with the different types, but this goes a little bit, has a little bit more structure to it to show you what the different things that can be funded. Again, just ask any questions that you have. I don't want to take up too much time because I essentially went through all of this already on the other slide. So this is part of the very complex scoring process that we have. I'm not going to go into big detail about it, but just know that if you ever want to get a project going, the best thing to do is to look at our scoring matrix and make sure that it aligns, and that'll make you really competitive in the process through the project call. There is a required match of 20%, and so you get bonus points if you do an overmatch. Project readiness is one of the key things that we have. So the Texas Transportation Commission kind of changed the game on us. We typically have 4 years to spend the money. Now we have 2 years. They are reconciling our books every year. And if we're over 200%, what they have told us is that will trigger a conversation. That step is not codified, and it makes me very nervous because the part that is codified says that basically they can take the money if it's not spent in the amount of time that it says. But they have told us multiple times that it'll trigger a conversation. If you can demonstrate the reasons why it's delayed, it's not likely you'll get the money taken. But again, I like to see everything codified. I have a lawyer background, so it makes me feel more comfortable. But essentially, these are all the things that are listed on those handouts that you have that have the really big, long flow chart. I didn't put the flow chart in here because it's quite a bit. But again, you have to do advanced funding agreement with TxDOT. You got to procure a consultant. You have to do environmental clearance. You got to get the right of way. You have to do the project development, the utility coordination, other coordination. I don't know. I guess y'all probably don't have UP railroad issues in this city. Is that right? I can't think of any. But just know UP is not easy to deal with. They're about like dealing with the military, trying to get something done. And then project letting, construction completion, and then additional information and comments are the things that we ask for so that you can tell us those. But these things need to be quite advanced before you can be competitive, because you're supposed to be going to construction within 2 years within 1 year of what you tell us you're going to go to. So going into the documents that are required, and again, stop me at any time to answer questions if you have any. The required documents are Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is our long-range plan, our Transportation Improvement Program, which is the program of the construction projects, and then our Transportation Conformity Determination, which is related to the air quality that we have to demonstrate in order to get our projects approved in the Bexar County area. So the UPWP, as I mentioned earlier, is funded through those planning dollars that come from FTA and FHWA. It includes the staff budget, but it also has regional planning studies. It's 2-year periods. So we just entered FY25 and we'll be developing the 26 or 27 one. So I'd call your attention to this. If there's any studies that you want us to look at, we could possibly fund it through our UPWP program. Right now, we have a resiliency study that just finished, and that'll be turning into resiliency improvement plan. And that'll have a list of projects for resiliency. As you probably guessed, the biggest things that we are dealing with is their extreme heat and flash flooding is typically the things that we experience the most. And so we have things, and we have areas that have been identified. Now we just need to get those turned into projects that can be funded. Curb management, this is something that came about during when the electric scooter showed up overnight. So this has been on our books for quite some time. The city of San Antonio has asked us to expand it so that we can actually look at the users for the curb. And that'll include the downtown areas as well as the main streets and Bernie and Seguin and those outer counties, New Braunfels, et cetera. We had a regional freight study oversight committee meeting yesterday, and that was the second one. So we're looking at freight movements. We will be doing a freight forum in March. So if there's anybody that you know that's interested, if they have issues with truck parking, or if they have issues as independent operators of trucks, please, I'll send that information to Councilman Joyce and he can forward it for that forum if you know anybody that's interested in attending that workshop. That would be great. Comal County Railroad Crossing, that's another study that is kicking off this month. And that one is essentially to look at railroad crossings, particularly the at-grade ones. As you know, the UP trains are getting longer. Those delays at those at-grade areas are getting longer as well. So you're waiting for that train. So we're looking at those so that we can try and keep the mobility and see what projects can come out of that can maybe mitigate for some of those delays. New Braunfels Transit Connection Study is also kicking off this month. So we have a lot going on at AMPO. New Braunfels Transit Connection Study. So with the last census, New Braunfels became eligible to be their own transit entity and receive federal dollars directly. And so they are pursuing that money, and they are doing very systematically looking at it before they just plop a system into their city. And so we're doing a transit connection study with them so that they can see how the San Antonio VIA can maybe operate in conjunction with them, and seeing the connections to Seguin as well, so that it's all kind of very strategically planned out. And then a regional ITS and TSMO plan. So as I mentioned earlier, the ITS and TSMO is the systems that keep us going, gives us direction if there's an accident or so forth. The TxDOT already built out one that has to do with the major highways. And so now we're saying, how does that interact with the locals? The local, once you get onto a local street, how that would work. And so we're going to look at that based on the architecture plan that TxDOT came up with, and look at how we can contribute to that regionally and locally. This is just an example of the different studies that we've done in the past. I pretty much explained all the ones we have going on now, so probably don't need to touch on this too much. But we do have a regional thoroughfare plan study that is coming out this year also, and that's a huge one. The MTP is our long-range plan, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and that right now our horizon year is 2050. And so with that one, we look at the trends for population, jobs, where projects should be going, where infrastructure is going to be needed, because those trends usually stay the same over a 20-year period. And then that's the vision and goals are outlined in there, and those vision and goals actually guide the Transportation Improvement Program. And so that's the 4-year list of transportation improvement projects that were approved for funding through the project call that I just mentioned. The current one is 25 through 28, and the project calls for 27 through 30. So you can see that there's a couple years that overlap there every time we do that. It is fiscally constrained, and so there's only a certain amount of dollars that we can award. As I said before, 256 million, it's quite a bit of money, but we can't get more than that at any given time for this particular call. It is done every 2 years through the project call, and again, it's guided by the vision and values of the main document that we have, the long-range plan. Let's see, the required 20%, I mentioned that already. All of this is reimbursable. So the municipalities need to have the money up front and then they get reimbursed 80% of it. And those projects will be programmed between 27 and 32. I am going to mention something at the end about some available loans that are available for those types of reimbursement programs. So the project call will go for public input in 2025. Later on this summer, we'll be taking the proposed projects out to the public to get feedback from them so that they can rank the ones that they think need to be awarded money. And then the project selection committee will get together and they'll be doing technical scoring, looking at agency priority, the readiness component that I mentioned, as well as the public input. And then, as I said, the draft document will come out in May of 26. So it takes us a whole year to get to the actual document. And then the policy board is tentative to approve that in June of 26. So that those projects can start letting in FY 27, which is October 1 for us. This is just an example of the competitiveness. So the number of projects that were submitted were 68 and 39 were awarded funding. And this was, as you can see, we had 376 million that we approved, but we had 654 million in need. So that's always something that we try to point out. The need is always greater than what we have available, as you know. I don't have to tell that to you all. Transportation conformity determination, essentially that the plans are consistent with air quality goals. I can go into a lot of information about this. It's a very complex scenario that we have to go through to make sure these things are working. We currently went into serious non-attainment. The state looked like they were going to miss a deadline, one of the federal deadlines, and so they volunteered to put all of the areas that were in non-attainment for ozone, just volunteering to put them in serious. We were moderate, which was very low compared to serious, and now we're in serious. So we'll be learning quite quickly what the serious implications mean as we go through this next conformity determination. The one that we turned in for the last plan was not under serious. So this will take us to the next level on probably different things we have to observe and make sure that we attend to. Oops. So essentially what we have to do to make sure that all of these projects align with the air quality goals, we did a travel demand model that looks at emission analysis, and the results of those emissions is what they use to determine if we're in conformity or not. And this is very simplified, the way I'm presenting it here. This slide is basically to show you that they kind of move the target on us. The 2008 target, as you can see, was much higher, and we'd be in that. We would be in attainment if they had not changed it in 2015 to a lower standard. One of the reasons they keep changing the standard is because they know that things are getting better with quality. Cars are getting more fuel efficient and so forth. The one thing that I will share with you that I think is important is the cars don't make a difference in Bexar County, but we still have to do this process. And the only reason we realize that is because, as you know, in 2020, many people weren't driving, but those monitors were still showing us out of attainment. And so what we're figuring is, and what they have proven, what ACOG does air quality analysis for us, the photochemical models have shown that what is happening is it's outside of Bexar County, and the wind patterns are bringing that pollution in. It's registering the monitors, but Camp Bullis, where it's located, we get the winds up and we get the winds down. And so it's kind of essentially monitoring it twice, the same winds. The trade winds are not our friends when it comes to these monitors. The Calaveras Lake one has always consistently come in low, as you can see on this thing, but the one that's in Northwest and at Camp Bullis is always above the standard, the 2015 standard. And then we have performance measures that we have to consider: safety, infrastructure, system performance, and those safety is done annually. Infrastructure is every 2 years. Infrastructure is essentially bridge condition and pavement condition. And then system performance is reliability and making sure that we get there. You know, it's going to take you a certain amount of time to get there, the reliability and the mobility performance measures. FTA is essentially transit, Federal Transit Association Administration. we look at those as provided by VIA, and then we update according to their plant updates. So their safety measures and their assets. Typically, they do that annually, and we get those codified through the board approval. And then just things you might want to consider. There were several things that came out of the bipartisan infrastructure law that allows a lot of municipalities to take advantage of doing direct grants to the feds. And so those discretionary grants and formula funding opportunities are there. It really encourages regionalism and partnerships. So if you guys wanted to go after something, I would suggest maybe partnering with Bexar County, maybe partnering with the city of San Antonio, or partnering with TxDOT, which I assume TxDOT probably is the one that addresses a lot of your major roadway issues. And obviously we have a great relationship with the San Antonio district, and we're really proud of that. Again, I don't know that any of these would really be something that you guys would pursue, but Safe Streets for All could be one that y'all want to pursue. It's related to Vision Zero, making sure that pedestrians are safe in the environment, in the common areas. And then Healthy Streets program, again, is one that looks at cooling pavement, the extreme heat and making sure that cooling pavement, shade structures, and so forth. Infra is not one that you would probably pursue. Those are the huge ones, like the millions and millions of dollars. Protect is resiliency. And if there's a project that's listed in the plan that we're developing over the next couple of years, you can get a reduced match. So that may be something that we want to follow up on, look at the areas in Castle Hills that show up on our map that either have low water crossings or prone to flooding, have extreme heat issues. Those things, if we can list a project in our plan, you can get a reduced match. And then raise the stormwater and so forth, wildlife crossings pilot program. The thing I did want to specifically point out is the State Infrastructure Bank. And so they give you really good rates if you need to borrow money to have the match and do the reimbursement program. And that's offered through TxDOT and the State Infrastructure Bank. And they've done a couple of presentations to our policy board, but I can give you more information on that if you would like it. And then the Technical Advisory Committee has a work group for project readiness. And essentially at that meeting, we talk about project readiness and the things that are listed on that flow chart that I handed out to you. I'm almost finished because I know I'm taking a long time. Then programs and capabilities we have GIS and travel demand modeling. We have great talent in both of these departments. If you all need anything related to GIS or travel demand is essentially looking at traffic counts. You can look at the actual, you can look at the projected for traffic counts. We have an active transportation program. So we could come and do a street skills class. That's basically how do you safely bicycle on the street with cars. It's a safety class. We do walkable community workshops where we actually come into the community, look and do a walk audit, walk around, see if there's issues that would be obvious and that need improvement for safety for pedestrians. And then we have a commute solutions program that just encourages people to get out of their single occupancy vehicle, carpool, ride the bus, walk, or bike. And it does come with an emergency ride home because, as you know, taking the bus, if you have an emergency, you may not get there quickly enough. So we have an emergency ride home program that you can get reimbursed for your ride home. And that is all I have in my presentation. I hope it wasn't too long. But yes, it's a lot of information and we're doing a lot at AMPO, and I'm happy to answer any questions. My contact information is there and you can reach out to me if you have something that follows up that you have a question about.
Well, thank you very much, Sonia. We appreciate it. Could you please make a comment or two on some of the deadlines coming up for the grant, for the call to projects?
Yes, so the call for projects, the first deadline is March 1st, and we're going to be evaluating those in 2 steps. So the submittals that are done on March 1st are actually going to be looking at to make sure that the projects qualify for the funding program that they're applying for, and making sure that they're actually ready. And then the second step will be doing April 1st. And that'll be submitting the documentation saying that, your council would approve the match, making sure that those funding on the local government side is all in place so that we can streamline all that information as we award those projects, I'm sorry. And then, so we'll be making announcements May 1st, around the beginning of May, of who actually gets awarded. And we'll be taking those through. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have brought the slide that had the detail in it, and I didn't want to put too much in it about the project call. So we'll be taking it to the public in May and June. And then in June, the Transportation Policy Board will approve the list of projects for funding. So it's a pretty quick timeline. But then after that, we have to model all of the things and get the actual improvement program document developed and then take it out to the public. So that's why it takes a whole nother year. And we have to do the conformity, and the conformity is quite complex. And if you're interested, you can go to Alamo area mpo.org/call for projects, and it should be on our homepage if you can't get to the call for projects. It has the schedule and so forth. And I'll send you the link so you don't have to go looking for it.
Good, thank you.
Are you all planning to submit, or does TxDOT have something in the hopper that you guys are trying to pursue, or the county?
No, we're certainly considering submitting. We have a few things in mind, and it kind of originates from this body here.
Okay,
It would be elevated with Ryan's help to help from the engineers and then to council. But yeah, we've got a few things in mind. We just need to figure out what the best approach is for one question we have to answer, for example, is there's a number of planning things that we need, a number of planning projects that we need, and we know what the amount is, the rough amount is, but we don't have a source. So I guess one of the things we're thinking of, should we make use of this call for projects for some of that planning money, or just make use of your own in-house, I forget the acronym, but you have your own in-house planning grants.
if it's a study, we can do a study, and that's the UPWP, the Unified Planning Work Program, and that can be amended at any time. So we can incorporate a study in there. We are looking to develop the 26 through 27 one beginning next month. And so you can attend that meeting if you want, or I can talk to your staff, or I can talk to you all directly about how we can do that.
Okay.
So if it's a study, that's a lot easier. You don't necessarily have to go through a competitive process for that.
Okay.
And so what I'm trying to do, regardless of if I get the director position or not, I hope I still have my job as deputy director. But what I really want to do is figure out a sustainable funding source that can help with that project development, because currently the way we have it set up, we can fund studies in the UPWP and we can grant for construction money, but we don't have any assistance for in between. And that's where it's expensive, right? Acquiring right away, doing the environmental assessment and so forth. It's very expensive, and it can be a long process depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And so I'm trying to get a steady stream, a sustainable revenue so that we can fund some of that for the smaller municipalities, because it's expensive.
Sure. Well, good luck with that. We'd love
Yeah.
to see success there.
Well, thank you. I mean, we just got to figure out, I know there's money out there. I just got to find out where it is. Sir, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Sonia, first, thank you for a very fine presentation here. Lots of good information. I particularly like the slide on showing the approved projects and the amount of detail that's there. I write grants. I work at Lackland. I write grants, and for the most part, the funding agencies don't give us the total number of projects or their award rates and things like that. Except maybe retroactively after the cycle's over. And, for the most part, the award rate's around 20% for things that are submitted. And, this is very encouraging. So the number of projects for this that you're showing here in this data, has that been increasing historically? How long has AMPO been funding things?
So I've only been there 3.5 years. My background is public involvement. And so one of the things that I'll just say about one of your comments is that we take a lot of pride in being very transparent. It is federal tax dollars, and we all pay for those. So I feel like we really should make that a transparent process.
I wish all funding agencies were that transparent.
Yeah. So the one that you are looking at is, I don't know if we can get back to the slides. The one that you're looking at is from 23 through 26.
Right.
The reason I included that one is because it had a STBG call. The one last year, or the 25 through 28 tip, did not include STBG, because right around that time that we were summing up, the 23 through 26 was when all the inflation hit. And so the board very astutely decided, based on staff recommendation, that we would use that STBG money to fund. And it was a really unique situation to go ahead and fund those ones that were already chosen through the previous project call,
Right.
make sure that they got their
That,
funding.
that leads into a
increase.
question, another question that I have, regarding the review process. Do you give critiques back to, or do you just say you were not awarded? But do we know what the reviewers, do we hear what the reviewers thought of?
Yes, so all of
Because
the,
that can help us improve it.
yes.
And has there been an instances where the reviewers liked it, but they really wanted to give the submitter a second chance, not a second chance, but like we'd like to see some other information if you could provide that quickly.
And so that will happen with the first step, the March, when we look at the project cost submittal in March, we'll look at that and assess that. And if there's missing information, we'll request that information.
Very good.
We're not the type that's like, oh, you're disqualified, you didn't follow the rules.
Some of, as you know, some
Yeah.
places are like that.
It's not really a grant, but I like for folks to treat it like a grant because there is a ticking time clock on it, right?
Right.
And the reporting is required and so forth. But we're not that
Okay.
stringent.
And my last question is, when you were discussing the thing that was not codified, that you're a bit concerned about, executing everything in 2 years rather than they're supposed to be 4-year grants, and you heard that everything needs to be done within 2 years.
So when you submit a project, you tell us what fiscal year you expect it to go to construction. So if you tell me fiscal year 27,
Right?
that money sits in 27, used to be, you could probably change it they're supposed to let within a year.
Right.
But we had a lot more flexibility before. Now, if we have over 200% in any category, that amount over 200% can be taken away from us and given to the San Antonio district or to another area.
Right. And that leads to my very final question is that along the way for that 2 years, are there progress reports that need to be
Yes.
turned in? How many progress
So,
reports?
What
What's the
we do
frequency?
is we do quarterly reviews.
Quarterly.
We do quarterly reviews with the majority of folks that we have. And let me back up a little bit because the only two funding categories that are scrutinized is the CMAQ, which is the air quality, and the STBG, which is the big funding source,
Yes, yeah.
right? 7. So those are the only two that are really scrutinized. The other ones have a little bit more flexibility. in
So you have
terms
to
of it.
show progress within that first 3 months.
So what we
otherwise,
do is we have
You're
quarterly.
at risk of losing your fund.
Yes, yes. So we're meeting with folks and we tell them if anything changes in your project, reach out to us immediately because we need to figure out if this isn't going to go, we need to ask if another partner can accelerate something so that that money is done. For instance, we were going to be over or under programmed in 25 for STBG, but the county is accelerating the Blanco Road continuation of Blanco Road to the county line. They're going to be accelerating that piece. And so that's 22 million in STBG that went from fiscal year 27 to 25. And so that puts us back in the black
Okay.
for programming. That's just
Well,
one
that does sound
example.
very encouraging because it sounds like the lines of communication are open. So if a project does change, we just let you know,
Mhm.
and then that's documented.
And then we have to figure out what's going to backfill it.
Exactly.
And what I've observed, obviously the ones that have been in the game longer know how to work it, right? But it's really the smaller municipalities that we really have to show them and work with them a lot closer to make sure that their projects don't lapse and give them the resources
Right.
that they need. Balcones Heights got an award for Hillcrest from Fredericksburg to Babcock. They are pushing theirs out because they want to make that whole extension concrete,
Mhm.
which is a little bit more expensive than asphalt. And so they pushed out from 26 to 27 because they're trying to identify some funds. And I believe they're taking it to their voters to get a bond to pay for that. So those are just some little things that happen, but we track them all the time. When I first started, they said that the deputy director before me kept all this information in her head. And I was like, oh, that's not me. I'm not gonna keep all the information in my head. So I put together the project readiness work group so that the folks around the table, they have to be accountable to their own agencies and to us, right? And so And it's not a contentious situation. It's just like, are you going to be ready? Are you not going to be ready? If you're not, we need to figure that out and work together. So to me, as a public involvement consultant, because I did that for 25 years, it really is all about communication and making sure that we're
Absolutely.
communicating consistently so that we can be sure that we don't lose that money because we can't afford. I mean, you saw the growth that we're expecting. We cannot afford to lose any money. And you saw the need, right?
Mhm.
We're only funding like 50% of the need. So, but I won't underestimate the effort and resources it takes to federalize a project versus just doing it as a local municipality. It's very complex and
Oh,
it
it's
can be
absolutely-
expensive and TxDOT again is a great partner and they're always willing to answer questions proactively if you have questions about something. And we are too.
Well, thank you very much. Absolutely.
Work, governmental cooperation. So from there.
Yeah. Well,
Most of us have relationships with. The only project we have right now is what's that? Current.
we, in addition to writing grants, I also serve as a reviewer for for the CDMRP. And we always go for the shovel ready projects because they can be executed right away. It's good, we're good stewards of the money because we give it out to folks who will do the project and you can hit the ground running right away. But you've got to start somewhere. And so it's good that we've got projects in mind that we can develop, perhaps as Mr. As you just said a few minutes ago, they can help with the planning, maybe a plan.
Well, like I said, if it's just a planning study, we can, incorporate that at any time. And the project calls every 2 years. So you have another 2 years to advance development. And we can talk some more about that project if it's not ready. But
Absolutely.
yeah, we definitely make a distinction because there's a lot of projects that I call shovel worthy. But if they're not shovel ready, it could be an
Right.
issue and they need to be close to, because if you applied now, you wouldn't even start until 27, right? So would that be enough? And so that's why we ask for all these things of readiness and that
Well,
submittal form.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you must have some shovel-ready projects that already have all the engineering diagrams and everything all worked out. Just like in my world, folks who have all their preliminary data and stuff, so basically have already done a lot of it. And so they just need to build on those projects. Those tend to be scored much higher than someone who's like, oh, I've got a bright idea. I think I'd like to pursue. That tends to be very risky because, it may not come to fruition. But if you have some, proof of concept already or preliminary work
Yeah.
done on it. So, engineering diagrams, plans that you've been doing already, making for the last couple of years, you just get them in the right format.
Well, and another thing to note that's really important that I probably should have somewhere in my presentation is that you have to follow the federal guidelines for the entire process if you want to apply for federal dollars. So if there was any right of way that was acquired ahead of time and it doesn't meet the federal standard, you wouldn't be eligible anymore.
It's tough.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics and I'm happy to talk to staff more or come
Mhm.
back and give you some more information. But one example is Tupper Wine Road. The city of Converse really wanted to get ahead on things. And so they went and acquired all this right away, but they didn't follow the federal process. And so that entire segment of that road became ineligible for federal funding. So it's
So-
just a cautionary tale more than anything.
So, are the federal guidelines on your website somewhere?
Yes, and
Okay.
TxDOT has several different literature, a lot of literature behind that
Okay,
as well.
good, thanks.
No. Are there federal guidelines for, I should probably know this since I've been on the committee now for a couple of years, for walkways and connectivity
Oh, yeah.
and bike lanes and all that?
Yeah, they're, well, what we do is we bake in their guidance and guidelines into our project scoring. So the more you adhere to their standards, the more you're going to score. Your scores will be higher.
Okay.
So it's always, and that's why I say if you really have a project you want to pursue with the federal dollars, look at the scoring matrix so that you can set it up. UTSA is really trying to do something very innovative and incredible downtown on Nueva Street to connect from Hemisphere. Because UTSA, the UT system owns Hemisphere and all the way over to their downtown campus. But what they're doing is they're programming a study in our UPWP, and that study is outlined to meet all of the things that would be competitive in the project call so that they can take the results of that study and just turn it into a project call, a project for a project call, because that'll give them all the information that they need to make it look really attractive to the feds. So it's really strategic and it's
It's
smart.
strategic.
Yeah. And again, I'm happy to share all that information. It is a lot of information. So, but yeah, as much as we can, we'll come back and we'll share that information early and often and get you guys teed up.
Perfect.
I will say that, transportation alternatives, if there's anything you're looking at with hike or bike, those are a lot easier to get through, particularly if no right of way has to be acquired, and that's not scrutinized on that 2-year budget program. The Transportation Commission.
We do have a bike project and a walkability project within our comprehensive plan, but I don't think it's anywhere near shovel ready. It's just kind of an idea right
You
now.
might want to look to see if there's anything in there that would connect to the city of San Antonio's bike master
Mhm.
plan, because that would be a really good partnering.
Well, one of the goals is to connect to Harburger Park up on Northern Military.
Yeah, I mean, and that would, I mean, I haven't looked at the bike network plan yet, but it's out there. We have a multimodal planner that's in the trenches in it. I am not. And there's a lot of things in there, but I think you would be very, very competitive if you partnered with the city of San Antonio to help them accomplish their bike network plan.
Mhm.
No,
We
I
don't-
think that would be a good
That's
partnership.
very interesting because sometimes we work investigators and they have 3 different projects that they want to do and they want to apply to a funding call. They will talk to that program officer and say, of these 3 ideas, they share the ideas with them and say, which one fits with the goal of your funding agency, better, which
Mhm.
would be a better fit.
Mhm.
And then they write a proposal for that one of the 3 ideas that they had. So similarly, if we propose to use some bike trail projects that you could give us feedback ahead of time
Absolutely.
saying,
Yeah.
this will fly or this will never, this has no wings.
Well, I think everything has potential. We can probably work to get something out of it. I mean, I would imagine you guys, if you hired a consultant, they shouldn't be giving you stuff that really wasn't feasible. But you never know. But
But
yeah,
we have that
absolutely look at
Time
it.
between March and April too, that if,
Yeah.
the feedback we'd get would be, this
Yeah,
sounds feasible, but you would need to have
you're just
X,
not
Y,
ready
and
to
Z.
go. Yeah, that might not be an unusual circumstance that we face. But one of the reasons I developed this flow chart is I know it's hard for staff to tell elected officials that you can't get something under your tenure if you have like a 2 or 4 year tenure. And I just want them to know, like, if it's something that's just a dream at this point, you're only up here and you got to go through all of this before you can be competitive. And so I kind of just gave it to staff to arm them. And I've always told them, if you need me to be in a meeting to let them understand the project development process, I'm happy to do that.
Right.
I just think it's so important that they understand that so that they don't get upset with their staff for one, and we're the folks that are giving the money. So I think it's important.
We have an extensive, comprehensive plan that some of the parts are dreams and some of the parts are very detailed.
Okay.
And Ryan has a lot of,
Well, we have a
Shovel-ready
regional
things.
thoroughfare plan that's going to come out. We're going to put that out for procurement to a consultant, hopefully this quarter. And essentially what that's going to do is look at all those thoroughfare plans that are out there, look at all the comprehensive plans that are out there and synthesize them into one so that we can see as a region what is planned, what is there, and where are the gaps. I think the MPO has gotten away from that.
very nice.
They started out as a San Antonio Bexar County MPO and they've expanded and now we're expanding again. And so to me, it's really important that we are those regional conveners of what do we need to do regionally to keep everything connected and moving. And so talking to somebody yesterday, it occurred to me that we should probably amend that study and add the multimodal component to it. I know those of us that have been here for a long time, probably like, "Oh, I'm never getting on my bike to go to work." But those electric bikes, they go 35 miles, 40 miles an hour now, and people are using them as a realistic alternative. So it's just something, and
My granddaughter has electric. bike.
yeah.
She's gonna
and-
use it at A&M now. She's gonna.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to go. And we have guys, or we have folks at the office that ride their bikes to the office. I personally wouldn't do it myself because I feel like it's quite dangerous because there aren't dedicated bike lanes all the way from my house to there. But I think it's something that we'll probably add to it. So that multimodal component will be reviewed as well.
Very nice.
And hopefully by the end of the year, we can have some things that we can look at. And again, to start building that pipeline of projects that I want so that hopefully we can kind of get away from a project call and just come to consensus on a list of projects for priorities. And hopefully that's what direction we'll go. Because what happens with the project call is you get points if you're in a plan, but we don't have like a master plan, a regional master plan. And I really feel like that's the direction we should be going in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I feel like I'm talking a lot. I hope
No, you're good.
information
That's
for you
perfect.
all.
Now, we look forward to working with you.
Yes.
Okay, good. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you for your
probably say what
time.
You'll have to say about your comprehensive plan. I think it was on the agenda too. Yes,
Perfect.
you're welcome. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, any comments, questions? Mhm.
It is.
Discussion and possible action on identified projects in the commons, shade structures, stage, and other amenities, including phase 2 of the commons project. Brian?
Yeah, so real quick, the other company that was supposed to come out and give an assessment of for shade covers for the stage and playground, they didn't get out this week, but they'll be here early next week. So as soon as I have that, I'll have a side-by-side comparison for y'all versus the quote I gave you from the other company.
Mhm.
So we should have that without an issue next meeting to make a decision on that. And then as Councilman Joyce knows, we went out for bid for a contractor to construct the pavilions, do all the flat work, sculpture pads, everything turnkey. We got the bid in, we got one bid. It's going to be on the council agenda for Tuesday night to award. So my understanding is that they're close to being, the pavilions are close to being delivered. And if council were to award to this general contractor, then he's immediately going to start, in the next few days after awarding, we signed the contract, everything, to start getting the layout for the construction and start the flat work, everything. And so then when the pavilions get here, he can just immediately install, construct. And then, like I said, our deadline is to get it done by the end of March.
Mhm.
I think we're on that path. I think Councilman Joyce feels more comfortable about that plan now, I believe. I hope. But ultimately on the shade covers, I'd like to see what the other company has. Same company that did the ones for our fleet here for PD. So I think we might actually get a better quote. And then we're gonna have to figure out, prioritize from y'all, which is sort of more important right now for shade cover for playground or stage, because of some of the dollars we have left for availability of that. So this pavilion construction is going to probably take up the rest of our ARPA money. So we'll have to find some dollars somewhere else. I think that's it. Other than Councilman Joyce has anything on that one?
Oh, the only thing I would mention, Ryan, is that as Ryan hinted, the numbers did come in a little bit higher than we had hoped. So we're probably gonna have to reshuffle some of the things we had hoped to get done with the federal money
Mhm.
and maybe the seed money as well. But I mean, we have the money. And I think there's so much exciting happening there with the shade structures. And perhaps even more than that, the sculpture garden, the sculpture pedestals. I mean, it's not a big part of the cost, but the idea that little old Castle Hills could have their own sculpture garden, there's no other little city around here that has that. So I think it'd be a great thing for the city. It can give us a great sense of pride and, as they say in the military, the esprit de corps, you
Yeah,
know,
esprit de corps.
the pride. So anyway,
Good for morale.
it's going to be a little bit more costly than we had hoped, but I think we need to move ahead and hopefully council will agree on Tuesday night.
I just comment regarding the priority for the shade structure over the playground versus the stage. I would say playground first because that's used during the daytime when it's hot and sunny, and stage is generally used more in the evening when the sun is down.
Yeah, ultimately, if we can choose one and say February, March, April, they can have one put up in a couple months before Fiesta for the playground. That would be great. I think right now, if we're talking 30 or 40,000 for a rectangular 4-pillar stage, shade cover for the playground, that's seems feasible from a dollar standpoint. It just might have to look in this budget process this year where we might get us a cover, because I know that Judy had mentioned they already have the canopy on reserve for the stage for Fiesta. So
So that's covered.
yeah, it's covered.
Yeah, and then what I hear is the playground needs another shade structure, a bigger one.
Yes.
So I would,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So if more than likely, depending on what we choose and cost, it may be where I'll have it next month and we can move forward if it's a certain price, below 50,000 something, can move forward with ordering it and then just have council ratify the purchase something. So we don't wait on having to wait another month for a meeting with council. I could just move forward with it.
Right,
That sounds good.
yes. Any other comments, questions, concerns on the amenities and the commons? All right, discussion and possible action on priorities task related to the city's comprehensive plan. Mr. Joyce.
Thanks, Bernard. Just let you guys know that I think last time we mentioned that we're going to have the architects who are looking at doing a concept plan for our city hall toured facility. And their proposals are due, I think, was it the 16th, Ryan, next week? Thursday. Okay, their proposals are due next Thursday. So that should be very interesting. We're very excited as part of the comprehensive plan to think about fulfilling the community's need to do something with this building. So at least Thursday, we'll get a sense of what the architects think in terms of what it's going to take to study it and come up with a concept idea and some costs as well for the different alternatives. So we're looking forward to that time. And the only other thing I was going to suggest, Bernard, is that maybe we just revisit following Sonia's presentation, maybe go back to item 3 for a moment and just talk about some of the possibilities for projects. Because March 1st is tomorrow.
That's right.
So I would suggest that we immediately agree upon 1 or 2 or 3 things, whatever it is. I'm sure Ryan has a couple of things in mind. I do, although the things I have in mind I think, suffer from a problem with shovel readiness.
Right.
But
We can get those shovel ready by March of 2026.
yes, that for the next
Mhm.
thing, which is a great piece of information to know, is that this will be continuous every couple of years. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, that's really all I have. And if you all don't mind, maybe we
Okay.
could go back and discuss that.
That'll work. All right, well, let's go back and discuss possible action on a presentation from the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization regarding TechStop grant opportunities. Mr. Joyce.
Well, and I've told a number of you guys have commented on the possibilities, and I appreciate that. But why don't we start with Ryan? You had an idea, Ryan, about, was it West Avenue? Is that what you were talking about?
Well, yeah, it is West Avenue, because there's portions of it that need reconstruction, and that being a main thoroughfare, obviously connecting both San Antonio and Castle Hills. So, but ultimately the stretch from Northwest Military to 410 needs a lot of work, reconstruction. I mean, we've done some some on-demand work out there with a contractor, but it needs more extensive work out there. And we're probably talking $2 to $3 million. And it's just something, the funding source isn't the only thing we have. The council has borrowed money for COs to do reconstruction of streets, but I don't foresee us borrowing any more dollars for reconstruction of streets in the future for a while, because of our debt model from that standpoint. So that would be something that would be considered as a project. At least it could be almost, I mean, our engineers had some preliminary design done on it and everything, so that can be finished up rather quickly and be submitted. The only concern I have is if we're not going to get dollars until 27. I don't know how much more some of that sections of road can take.
Right, right.
Because we would just be piecemealing it.
Is VIA involved any in the process? Or?
No, I mean, it's other than the concrete pads that were installed.
Right.
And it's when I got here in 2018, there was money for, I think, some mill and overlay of most of West Avenue, but VIA hadn't put in the concrete pads yet. So I told some folks, like, we're holding off on any work because I am not going to mill and overlay and then have VIA come in and put in concrete pads. So when I first got here, I talked to some folks I knew at VIA to get that done fairly quick. But now we need some other work done for mainly reconstruction on portion of those. So it's just been time. We've seal coated or done street for the other section, which is in good condition. We've just done microsurface work there, but there's portions that really need to be done. Next year, a contractor is going to come in who does our microsurface that is only going to do Northwest Military down to about just past St. George because of the condition of the street. Just past that is where we're starting to talk about areas that are failing, that we need money now or sooner than later to do that. But unless we go back to TxDOT, which I would love to.
They can't be patched in the meantime, Ryan?
It can, Councilman. I think that we can do some sections of mill and overlay, but it doesn't solve the problem due to the depth of the street. It needs to be brought back up from the base, especially that it's a highly traveled road. Especially those sections in front of Antonian that we've done some existing work. It right across from there, it needs more extensive work. We're talking $2 to $3 million. I think when I gave you the budget this year and showed outlook for 26, 27 of what road work needs to be done, that was included. It's just a matter of where we were going to position that. We have our street maintenance dollars. We got $1.5 million in street maintenance, but we can only do mill and overlays or microsurface and maintenance with those dollars. We really can't utilize those for large reconstruction projects. So.
It sounds like time is of the essence. That may be a good candidate for safe streets, safe routes to schools. There are multiple schools on that segment.
Right.
Again, it's the federal process, the long one, so I don't know if they move things around and apply for that grant. And they are releasing their money in the federal level, distributing the grant money, because we got a grant for a resiliency plan. And it's FY23, and we have the dollar yet.
Right.
Yeah, I've
Long term, right.
That would be a grant. That wouldn't be,
Oh no, I've heard of that, and I think I utilize that in my other cities where I've worked. But yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
figure out something. I mean, if somebody uses West Avenue, that works
Yeah.
every day. I appreciate looking at that, but.
So right now, that's the immediate project. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're, once we finish Carrollwood and North Manton, we've reconstructed all the streets of Castle Hills over the last 4 years. So from a residential standpoint, that's going to be complete. I'm looking at because with the MPO and, you know, this is a thoroughfare. It connects with other entities, you know, along the border of our city, from that standpoint, so.
Mhm.
And then down the road, I mean, once we, working on finalizing the meeting with the councilwoman in District 1 and CAD and the Transportation Department, I mean, Jackson Keller is gonna be, either they're gonna utilize a bond project in 27 for that, or we're gonna have to, you know, that might be an eligible project down the road once we get there with full design and, you know, shovel ready, from that standpoint, but, you know, that's 2 years from now.
And related to that is something this body talked about some years ago, and that's the intersection of West Avenue and Jackson Keller. Because it's such a disaster now. But I assume then that would be wrapped up in part of this discussion with the city of San Antonio?
Oh, yes, because I mean, they control that area is controlled, the traffic lights is all COSA. So the only thing we've done is, you know, done a mill and overlay a couple years ago because that pavement was in such bad condition. And we're responsible to, you know, HEB and the edge right there at Jackson Keller to 410 right there. And so that's why we did a mill and overlay project, I think 2 years ago for that, because that's our only responsibility.
Mhm.
But everything else is COSA within that intersection, especially the traffic lights.
Okay.
So, but that would be part of the discussion as well.
Any other thoughts, you guys?
What about the bike to Hardburger? What would we need to
Well,
get that
you know,
rolling?
I think it's eligible. I think based on Sonia's presentation, it would be eligible under the alternate transportation piece. But we don't have a plan. We have a estimate on a study, which was 90,000 or something like that. So maybe that's where we start. Maybe we apply to get the money for the study, and 2 years from now, we'll be ready to do something in terms of a grant. You know.
You already have the study estimate, you can send it to me and we can consider funding it. The MPO can either lead it, or if you guys want to contribute any amount of money to it, you guys can take the lead on it.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that.
Yeah, I like
We'll do
that.
that.
I mean, ultimately, you know, we can connect to Hardburger for Northwest Military. It's just having, you know, a consultant tell us how, because I don't think bike lanes are a good option on the shoulders.
Right,
But
right.
maybe the use of the median and or doing a median project landscaping all the way down Northwest Military, which TxDOT is amenable to based on my discussion with them.
Yeah,
But
but
they're
there's
like,
a-
but
the
they're like,
comprehend-
you pay for it.
Yeah,
But-
I apologize for interrupting, but the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan anticipated something a little different.
Yeah.
At least between West Avenue and 410. And that was more in line with that young lady from A&M who made that bike presentation a couple of months ago had in mind, which is the idea of the more safe lane approach. And I think what we were doing, we talked to TxDOT about this and they were open to it, is squeezing down their lanes a little bit. They won't give up a lane, but they'll squeeze them down a little bit and give us the right of way, which is 10 or 12 feet, something like that. And in that space, we could get both a bike lane and a pedestrian pathway, ideally covered.
Like they have those
Yeah.
big sidewalk things.
Yeah, right. But
Mhm.
But there would be a separation between the traffic going 40 miles an hour, whatever it is, which is terrifying if you're on a bike. By at the very least, the curb, ideally some sort of other median. But anyway, yeah, and you know, the median idea has been introduced a number of times, and I think that's a worthy idea, but I would think that that's something that the study would have to come up with the best way to do it. You know, look at the different ideas and say, what are the pros and cons of each? And, but anyway, yes, I'd be happy to send that to you, Sonia. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
But I call, planning consultant and they reevaluate that estimate if I don't know how old it is.
Just a few months. It's not old. Yeah.
They typically look at our studies and want to do the price tag.
Mhm.
I'll probably just get them to review it.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, any other ideas?
I'm done.
Ryan?
I'm done.
All right. Discuss and announce the date and time of our next meeting. What do y'all think? Ryan?
Twenty-second's better for me, for what that's worth.
Right, what is, so Valentine's Day is
That's Friday.
14th?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's- Okay. What do y'all think?
Fine.
Jack, you want 22nd?
I'm not here on
Or
the
Matt?
15th, Bernard.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine.
22nd's
Yeah.
better for me.
Okay, 22nd, let's do it. We will meet here again, February 22nd.
Yeah, I'm not that good a husband.
All right, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All right, adjourned. Thank y'all for coming and see you next time.
Thank you.